That timer is off. The timer is off. Let's get over it. Let's get into this. Hello? Hello? How's it going out there? My name is Jeff Fritz. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Welcome back to the live stream. This is C Sharp with CSharpFritz. We're going to spend about the next 2 hours talking about Blazor, about C Sharp, and getting you the information, a little bit of knowledge you need so you can be productive and do cool things building with .NET. In this session that's designed for beginners, answering your questions, focusing on the interaction with you. This isn't just a lecture here. This is, let's have a discussion around what's happening. If you're watching the recording of this, you're going to find there's about 40 minutes of Ask Me Anything right up front here, where we're going to talk to chat, we're going to answer questions, and then we'll get into our lessons. There are going to be chapter markers just below me if you're looking at the recording, so you can jump forward and backward to the various segments of today's stream. The chat room is hopping. It is hopping over there. Let's bring up the chat room and put 40 minutes on the clock for our first segment. A little bit of Ask Me Anything, a little bit of checking out and discussing with some of the folks what's going on out there. I want to say hello to Jawade, who's here from Karachi, Pakistan. Ergenrod is here on Twitch. Paul Randall is here from the UK. How's it going, Paul? Big Hunterson J, hello to you on Twitch. Otonium is here from Argentina. Alex, hello, good to see you. And Nikhil is in India. Good to see you. Daniel Case from sunny Essex in the UK. Hello, hello. Is it Imontas? Hello. Dex Martin, good morning to you. Luca DeMarco, hello in Italy. Rishab is here. Waiting for this session over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, we were asked to delay some of our content with some of the conflict that's going on in Eastern Europe. All the best to the folks that are affected out there. As a Ukrainian descendant, it breaks my heart what's happening out there. So Rishab says, I hope today I get my answer for managing login page as a first page. How does authentication work in Blazor WebAssembly with pre-rendering enabled? Yeah, we'll get into that. Pre-rendering enabling makes things a little bit more interesting, but we'll get in there. I'm too early. Sorry. Come back in an hour. Yeah, that's right. We had the States. We had daylight savings over the weekend, so we shifted hours. How's it going there, Guillaume in Quebec? .NET Kyle with a big wave to us. Dan Moyer on YouTube. Good morning to you. Michael Goldberg is here from New Jersey. Carlos in Florida. Morpheus BE, I guess that's Morpheus in Belgium. Hello, welcome in on Twitch. Bahai, how's it going there? Let me see. I'm glad to hear it, Paul. Samuta is here from Saudi Arabia. Is it? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I'm trying to think of the French pronunciation. Is that pronounced Wino Lagique in France? Good to see you. Hussein Zeki in Turkey. Politique in Quebec. Hello, hello. Arjun the Guru is here from Nepal. Ashraf from Jordan. How are you doing there? Droslov, hello to you in Russia. I hope you and your family are doing well. Not going to get into Auth0. Sorry. We'll talk more about the scope of where we're going to be where we're going to cover things today. Haram Codes, hello to you in Mexico. Prashant, hello to you in India. Diaco, how far off identity? I'm not going to go. So let's talk a little bit about scope. I'm going to be focused on how to configure and get authentication and authorization working in Blazor. When it comes to Microsoft Identity, getting it configured, building and integrating with all the different security services out there, it is a vast, vast topic where there are all kinds of things that you can do with that. That's not where I'm focusing my time. I'm going to be focusing on getting the framework configured so that it can consume the output of that. So I'm going to be going with some simple identity configuration so that the framework knows how to configure and knows how to interact with that. How you configure identity, how you can connect it to OIDC services, how to connect it to Azure AD, how to connect it to your own Active Directory running locally. Those types of things, or connecting and doing OAuth access with other services out there. Those are all great topics for my friend Christos and the 420 show. You'll find him a little bit later today on YouTube, on Twitch, and he is an expert at going through and talking about how to configure and get the most out of those things. I'm going to be talking through how to get the most out of using the framework with it. Dan's using Azure Active Directory B2C for authentication. After signing in, menu items and nav menu wrapped with authorized appear and can make web API calls passing the JOT bearer token. Yes, that's where we're going to get to. Mohammed, hello, good to see you in India. So Dan has 2 questions. When I sign out, the browser closes. Why is the browser closing? The browser shouldn't close. It should just disable the authorized menu items. You've got something else going on in there that's triggering and doing that. When are we going to have Visual Studio for Linux? Mac, asks Omniscient Bud. We do have Visual Studio for Mac. Visual Studio for Linux is the most requested user voice item out there. It's not currently in the plans. Let me get some music playing here in the background before I continue on with more of the questions, more of the greetings out there. This is the Stream Beats Synthwave playlist. Sure, we'll start from here today. This is Stream Beats. This is a set of music that's DMCA-free, royalty-free. You can listen to it wherever you'd like. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, doesn't matter. It's open. It's free for everybody to use. There's all kinds of genres out there you can listen to. This is a groovy synthwave playlist that I like to listen to. That's it's all instrumental. It just kind of hangs in the background and is nice background music while we're writing code, with a little bit of a futuristic EDM vibe. So, Yusuf, hello to you in Saudi Arabia. Yadal is here from Naples, Florida, continuing reading through here. There's so many folks chiming in from chat. Alex is having trouble getting Blazor WebAssembly to recognize when I've published new code. Any advice? When you publish new code, it should be, when you do the publish, even if you're just changing a couple lines in a Razor file, in your templates, it should trigger a change in how it's published. So all new files should be there, which means a new hash, which means it should download and reparse and rerun everything there. I'd want to see a little bit more about your source code to take a look at that. Something sounds like it's not configured properly. I would almost start off, create a new template and see what's different from the template in your application to see if something got disconnected or changed in there. Let me see here. Khalid, good to see you in Egypt. Caleb is here from Ghana. Hello, good afternoon to you. Trombone, identity is mostly used with Azure on examples. Is it possible to run identity on a MySQL instance? Trombone, yes it is. So I will show you how I use identity today. I'm going to do SQLite. You can certainly change that and point it to whatever database provider you would like to use. MySQL, Postgres, SQLite, SQL Server. There's opportunities to use all of those. 425 show. I'm sorry, 420 show. That's something different. Yes, the 425 show. James Foreman, good morning to you. Star Dretto, hello. Yes. While you're debugging an application, when you close ASP.NET, it will also close the browser. So, Luca on YouTube has a question. Building a multi-platform app with same UI on all platforms. .NET MAUI or Blazor, pros and cons. Blazor, I'd get a website for free too. Yes. But what's the trend for sites when you have apps for all platforms? Currently, a lot of folks like to spend the money to build natively for all platforms. That's a big expense. That's a big investment. It's a lot of code to maintain. It's a lot of applications to maintain. If you're a smaller organization and you don't want to spend all that time, yes, using things like React Native, like .NET MAUI, like Flutter, are going to get you that one application that you can run on multiple platforms. We think that .NET MAUI with Blazor is going to be very popular as .NET MAUI is scheduled for a release here, we're looking at May. But pros and cons, well, it's not released yet. There's a good start. But you'll be able to share that Blazor application into all of those frameworks that you want to go. No, I will not be talking about configuration with NoSQL databases. That's a little bit further outside the box here, but I can certainly point you to things like the RavenDB configuration that's out there on NuGet. Folks have built configuration for identity out on, and there are providers out on NuGet, out on the package service that you can download, configure, and install very easily. It's just swapping in a different provider. Will I talk about cookie authentication versus token authentication? No, I will not. I'll be focused on token authentication today. Am I planning to do a video about localization in Blazor? I wasn't planning to. Localization in Blazor is intended to be identical to how you do it with ASP.NET. I could probably put together a shorter video about that and publish it on YouTube that's very focused on the topic. So, how's it going there, Caparino? Good to see you. How do you deploy a Maui Blazor Windows app on a non-developer machine? Well, we're not talking about .NET Maui, but when you do build a Windows application, whether it is .NET Maui or Windows Forms or WPF or even a console application, you can bundle and include the .NET framework, the .NET runtime and libraries with it. I want to make sure I don't confuse you by saying .NET framework. You can include those things when you build with .NET 6. And you can even package it as a single executable. Take a look. There's notes in the documentation for, I believe they call it self-published applications. And that'll bring things over and you'll be able to work with those. Just haven't put on the gunner glasses today. I had a comment. Somebody said to me, we can't see your eyes. It'd be nice to be able to see your eyes. There's a thing there that makes it easier to connect with folks. It's like a human connection thing. So I wanted to spend some time without the gunners on just yet. Honorio, good to see you in the Nigerian Delta state. We're not playing Connect 4 today, Caparino. Those of you that don't know, we're playing Connect 4 over on my Twitch channel on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it's gotten quite spicy. Fritz versus chat, and I'm 12-0. I'm 12-0. I haven't lost. So that's kind of a thing. The app remains cached, says Michael. You have to manually clear cache. Yeah, there's something else going on with that configuration that I would need to dig in further. The default configuration of Blazor WebAssembly applications deploys, and when it sees a difference between the hash for the application and what's stored in browser, it downloads a new copy of things. That's built in with the default configuration. Something's happening there where it's not doing that check. How you doing there, Ronnie in Denmark? Am I only considering Blazor WebAssembly today, or are we including Blazor Server? We're going to focus on Blazor WebAssembly for the initial configuration bits. However, what I'm going to show you as far as authorized views, authenticating is going to be focused on WebAssembly. I'm sorry. Authorization, the features for configuring authorization throughout the application will work for both Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly. So the authentication stuff for Blazor Server is the same as doing it on ASP.NET Core. Has Microsoft changed identity to templates? Just generated a simple Razor Pages app, and it's using Microsoft ASP.NET Core Identity UI. That's right. Identity Server is no longer packaged with the .NET 6 templates. The latest versions of Identity Server have a different licensing scheme, which means that it's not necessarily open source and available for anybody to use. They're the folks that make Identity Server. They're running a business. They want to make sure that they get paid for building and delivering Identity Server. So if you are a larger organization, if you're running Identity Server with, you can check their website for terms of their contract, but when you use Identity Server with a certain number of users, or for a significant size business, like I said, check their website for the details. You need to pay them. They request payment for their application, for their tool that they've built. And I think that's only fair as software developers that, hey, they'd like to get paid for something that folks really enjoy using. So, you'd like to see more non-Azure examples of Auth as well? Yeah, I do that here. I will be doing that here. We won't be using Azure at all for Auth today. Good morning, Harold Gomez. Yeah, that exactly, Sean, on YouTube. Identity Server is now a paid model for folks that are just learning, for folks that are getting started. Very small organizations, you absolutely can use it for free. And older versions, Identity Server 5 and earlier, I believe it's 5. The version that ships with .NET 5, I believe it's 5 is the version number. Don't quote me on that. Take a look, refer to their website for specific details, but there is a version up to which you can use for free on any server. But if you want to use the latest tools, they do request they do request a licensing fee. Disputed Monkey's interested in the localization video as well. Okay, let's look at doing localization next week then. I was considering jumping over to our next topic next week, but next week let's do a little globalization and localization. Easy for me to say. Was there a live stream for Docker and .NET? I don't think I really covered. There was for deployment. We talked about putting things into Docker. Yes, you should be able to find that on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/.net, and click the playlists. Look for C# with CSharpFritz. Scroll all the way down there, and it's probably about 2-3 episodes ago. Self-contained option. That's what I was thinking of. Thank you, Star. Is there a way to convert a regular HTML page to a Blazor component? Asks Winterfell on YouTube. Or consume the static HTML page inside Blazor? That's a good question. I mean, you don't really want to do an iframe, but you can certainly do an HTTP client to grab that HTML and paint it, right, and include that. I don't think there's anything that's loaded directly in there that's immediately available that you can just point to and say, dump the HTML contents here. Some folks have built things to do that with Markdown, so you could inject Markdown into a page and it'll render it as HTML as well. You can find packages that'll do that over on NuGet. Pieter on Twitch, good to see you. What do I think about the fact that running Blazor over SignalR causes the HTTP context to be kind of scrambled when you're in the Blazor CMPS? So not core context. Yes. Well, you shouldn't be using HTTP context. Let's start there. You shouldn't be touching HTTP context inside of a Blazor application. If you're reaching out and interacting with HTTP context inside of your Blazor application, you're doing something wrong. There's all kinds of ways to get information from the request that's coming in. You shouldn't need to do that. So let's look at what you're trying to do with that, because the Blazor framework will properly hand off to you information using Navigation Manager. So if you're trying to reach into things like query string or cookies or things like that, those are handled different ways. You shouldn't be touching the HTTP context directly. And yes, because you're now connected through a WebSocket. and SignalR when you're using Blazor Server. So there's something more going on there. Human Connection, yes. You don't think you know them? No. James Foreman on YouTube. Let's see, now this is a type of AMA question that I like to get here. Do I like science fiction? What are my favorite science fiction shows? Oh my goodness. I was a big fan of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when that was on. But it hasn't been. The Marvel shows on Disney Plus have been tremendous. Book of Boba Fett, I watched it. I really appreciated The Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2. Book of Boba Fett, as somebody who I've watched the 10 Star Wars movies. As somebody who hasn't watched the cartoons, read the novels, Book of Boba Fett did nothing for me. There were folks that did watch the animated series, read the novels. They thought it was so great. Oh my gosh, look at all these characters that we know from all these other things. Okay, I don't know who that person is. They showed up for one episode, and poof, they're gone. Oh, that means something to a lot of folks. To me, as a novice Star Wars fan, I'm like, I don't care. So what? Who was that person? They were in, they're out. I don't know, whatever. So, yeah, I was a big fan of the Matrix movies as well. Swaraj Cooking and Fun from YouTube has a question. For deploying a Maui Blazor app, I used an MSIX installer self-signed package, but after installation, it's crashing and showing an event viewer that kernel base. Yeah, I'd need a little bit more. I'd need to see a little bit more what's going on there. When you do a .NET publish with a .NET Maui Blazor application, it will bundle everything up as a single folder, as a single file. Packaging with MSIX, I haven't done yet. I would need to defer to my friends that are working on Maui. And I haven't, only because it's not released yet. It's a little bit further along than I like to go into. Yes, lots of questions. It's great to have a bunch of questions here. Always fun to interact and chat with our .NET developer community, whether it's on YouTube or Twitch, all at the same time. TG on YouTube asks, is worker service in .NET Core the same as Windows service in .NET Framework? It's an evolution of it, because when you want to build a service, right? You want to build a service that's running as a background service, whether it runs on Windows, Mac, or Linux. Well, we can't use the Windows service template because it's not necessarily running on Windows. So the worker service template in .NET Core, .NET 5, .NET 6 allows you to build an application that initially runs as a console application, and there are instructions on the docs site of how you can add. There's just a couple lines of code if you want it to be installed as a Windows service or installed as a Linux-based service, so that it can run in the background, log messages appropriately to system logs, and restart on its own if there's an error. Those types of things. The worker service template is that next evolution of it. So really good stuff. Diaco on YouTube, can Blazor Server be used as a front-end web application and web API, or should we build separate projects? Yes, it can be used as a front-end web app and web API. You can, and that's kind of the beauty of working with ASP.NET, is we have all these different front-end technologies, all these technologies that you can use to build applications, whether it is web API, Blazor Server, MVC, Razor Pages, SignalR, all these really cool technologies you can use, gRPC, OpenAPI, and you're the chef. You get to choose what you want to pull together to make your application. So it might make perfect sense. You've got a smaller application, doesn't have a lot that it needs to do. Use a little bit of Blazor Server for your front-end web application, a little bit of web API that you may want some things to interact with. that are served and running off your site, sure, you can do that. You may get to a point where it makes sense to split off that API as a microservice. That's great. You'll be able to lift out those controllers or those map statements, put them into another ASP.NET application, package them with something like Docker, and ship them wherever you'd like, and still have the application be able to communicate and use all of those. Really great stuff that you'll be able to use and integrate and choose how you want to pull things together. So it's up to you how you want to build it. But all of those situations and scenarios are supported, Diaco. Thank you so much for that question. Dick Baker is here from the UK in Kent. Welcome in, Dick. Good to see you. Surly Dev on Twitch asks, what's the difference between globalization and localization? And the irony here is you're actually showing a localization sample in your question. Surly Dev asks the question and spells globalization with an S and localization with an S. And in English, in the Queen's English, that's the way you spell those. In American English, we spell those with a Z, with a Z. That's localization. That's changing and swapping out text so that it looks appropriate, so it reads properly. You may think of localization also as translation for folks in different cultures, different languages, because yes, I read localization with spelled with a Z, with a Z in there. Folks that speak the Queen's English, it has an S in there. Different, but still English. Still, right, different cultures and how they spell things. So that's localization. Globalization also includes things like number formatting, date formatting, these types of things that make it more acceptable, more palatable to our human eyes when we read data, and it needs to be delivered in a format that we understand. The American month, day, year, date format. For most of you that are outside the States, you're going to look at that and you're going to be confused. So the year, month, day format is a standard way to publish that. Of course, day, month, year, a lot of folks outside the States use as well. And there's different characters that are used to separate those, right? Some folks use slashes, some folks use dots. It's different for different folks. So how that is made available, those global settings, that's globalization. Yes, that's right, Pieter. Identity Server is now called Duende Identity Server, and it is a paid service. So, it's tough to say globalization, even in French says Bester on Twitch. Well said. You're right. Are there any free-to-use Blazor UI component libraries available? Asks James Foreman on YouTube. Yes, there are. Check out Blazor is a library that a lot of folks in chat have talked about. That's the only one I'm really going to highlight. But there are a number of open source and free Blazor UI component libraries out there. It doesn't hurt to pay and buy those libraries as well, because it takes a lot to build and maintain these things. And even if you were to get an open source library, I would suggest that you sponsor those folks that make that library, because it's taken a lot of their time to do that. Sahil on YouTube asks, how can identity be integrated with a generic auth identity provider? I'll show you how we can use OIDC. I'm going to have to hand the most of that answer over to Christos in the 425 show. You were promised Book of Boba. You got Book of Milk Tea instead. Oh, brother. Yes, I've got the We Are hat on today for Penn State, where I went to school. This past weekend was ice hockey tournament, and the last week the men's ice hockey team defeated Ohio State. First time that a underdog, that a lower seeded team advanced in the knockout tournament, and they lost 3-2 late in the third Saturday to those always tough Minnesota Golden Gophers. All the best to them as they move on in the tournament. I didn't even see who they're playing in the final, if it was Notre Dame or Michigan. But yeah, all the best. Mandalorian is cool, says Greg on YouTube. I agree. I have a Mandalorian hat around here somewhere. Oh, it's in the other room. That's where I saw it. MG Fateh says, which book site is the best place to learn C# for someone with background program in Python, C++, or Java? I prefer project-based learning. Take a look at .net/learn. There's a whole bunch of sample projects there that you can go through. You can also check out the GitHub repository for this show. There's a whole bunch of projects there as we go through things. And of course, the playlist for this, if you want to listen to this guy ramble on about things, check it out on YouTube, youtube.net, and click the playlist button. Look for C# with CSharpFritz. Yep, 10 Star Wars films, right? There's the Base 9 and of course, Rebel 1. Rebel 1? No. What's it called? I'm completely blanking on things today. Rogue One, that's what I'm thinking of. So, good afternoon to you, Sharaf in Egypt. Would I create a custom identity class today, or use the built-in one with Entity Framework? No, use the built-in one. Yeah. Mohammed Aminu is loving Blazor from Nigeria. Welcome. Thank you so much for the kind words. Appreciate that. Shouldn't we differentiate Blazor? It either runs on client or runs on a server, or it runs in a mobile application. It's the same user interface framework. How it's delivered, how it runs, is the flexibility that you get to work with. You get to choose how you want it to work. Good afternoon to you, Maurer in Nigeria. Does Blazor support Identity Server 4? Sure does. Supports all the versions of Identity Server, including the paid ones, and we'll see how it works a little bit later when we get into the samples. Am I covering auto logout upon session expired? No, I will not be covering that. Yeah, Rogue One. There we go. All right. About 8 minutes left. I have a couple questions, actually, that came in on the issues for in the GitHub repository. Do I still have the standby? Yeah. Get me logged in there. Excuse me. Change over. Let's go look. Do I have my commands set up here? I think I do. No, turn that back on. You, turn back on. Thank you. There you go. That'll get you the GitHub command, the GitHub repository right there. If you have questions when I'm not online, when I'm not broadcasting, you can head over there, you can drop an issue, and I'm happy to go through and answer those questions. I was doing a little bit of planning there on some of those. I did cover a bunch of these already. And I think we did that also. And we did that also. Let's close all those. It won't let me just close them, will it? Gee, thanks. Mark as close. So, right? What do you mean something went wrong? Do it. You make me sad. There's a couple questions about analytics and using local storage. We'll take a look at that to get things started when I head over to the other set. Zulius, good afternoon to you in Germany. Yeah, we'll talk through those first and get into today's samples. Which one do I use, Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly? Why not both? I have a number of applications that are deployed that use Blazor WebAssembly. For things where I want to be a little bit more secured and I want to ensure that I deliver content and that I verify my authentication on the server, I prefer Blazor Server. So Blazor WebAssembly, you're shipping everything down to the browser, including that code that is going to be conditionally executed in security context. I prefer Blazor Server in that case. So, could I have a session for different log and log to Azure Application Insights? Sure, you can do that also. Yep, that's absolutely possible. So, oh my goodness, coffee feels good today. Let me tell you. I woke up and wasn't feeling 100%, but wanted to make sure that we connected and delivered this session and got into our topics today. Am I reading Twitch TV and YouTube.com chats? Yes. Yes, I am. And I'm reading the Twitter comments also. Ha! Beat that! Alright, let me see what else is going on over here. Can I change the ASP.NET users table for a custom one? Why? I mean, yes, you can write code to do that, but why? What is Blazor and what's the difference between Blazor and OpenID? Okay, Nikhil, Blazor is a user interface framework. You use it to build a web application just like you would use Angular or Vue or React. And so it gives you a bunch of components that you can put together using C# to construct that user interface. OpenID is an authentication technology that allows you to reach out and communicate with another server to get authentication information sent back to your application. So, different. John on YouTube asks, how about transitioning from a database-based identity server to Active Directory? Any tips? That's where I would defer you to the 425 show, folks, to talk about that. You're gonna the trick is going to be managing that password changeover, and even then, you're not going to get it changed over, and you're going to need to require folks to sign in and reestablish a password on the new service. So I don't have any immediate tips on that. I'm sorry, but I know Christos has tips for folks to get an extract out of identity server. It's saved into a database somewhere, and push it into Active Directory. There are scripts that folks have written to get most of that stuff out. The challenge that you're going to run into, like I said, is the password cutover. You're going to need to force folks to re-log in when they get to Active Directory. Lucas is here from Brazil, starting a project using Blazor Server and Keycloak on the admin and customer panels. Should I use Blazor for the website? Also, I'm afraid Google could not index the Blazor pages. Google will not index Blazor WebAssembly pages that are rendered on the server. If you do pre-render, that are rendered on the client. Blazor WebAssembly pages that are pre-rendered on the server, Google can index those pages, and you will be able to work with it. Static websites like my Hats website or ClipTalk that I've built, they're static websites. They're built with Blazor, all runs in the browser, and the search engine bots like Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing, they don't know how to read and interpret that. So you need to provide an alternate rendering for those pages. I do that using Azure Front Door, and when a bot comes in, route it to a pre-rendered version of the page. Wellington has a database with a user table already created and don't need the other user table. You can re-implement the identity context and specify the table name. I haven't looked at that code in a while, but take a look at customizing identity, and there's ways to specify table names. I thought there was a way to specify table names in there. If you can't find it, drop me a line on Twitter, CSharpFritz on Twitter, and we can take a look and get you some help there. What is the 425, YouTube or Twitch? He's on Twitch. I believe there's an archive over on YouTube as well. 425 show is what it's called. How you doing there, Bandit Tool? Daylight savings happened in the States. How much C# can you get away with before learning Blazor? It's kind of the other way. You're going to learn a lot of C# when you're building with Blazor. So, when will there be AOT compilation for WinForms or WPF? Don't know. I don't think it's on the agenda for .NET 7. But, I mean, it's pretty darn fast. I don't know. So we are just about out of time for AMA. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining for the first 40 minutes or so. That's when we do a little bit of this AMA, a little bit of discussion. Failed when you tried it. Yeah, there's something wrong. I read your question wrong. How much of C# can you get away with knowing before learning Blazor? How much C# should you know before learning Blazor? You don't need to know much. You don't need to go digging down deep into things like multi-threading. You don't need to go. You can get away with learning some basics. When you want to start to get into some more complex things, you want to trigger async await things in different orders so that there's asynchronous operations. That's when you're going to need to take some time and learn a little bit more. Yes, AOT with custom DLLs are huge. Yep, they are. How you doing there, Francesco in Switzerland? Yes, SEO with Azure Front Door. Examples available. ClipTalk does that. I should write a blog post about it. I really should. I've got a bunch of blog posts that I'm going to focus on and deliver for ClipTalk this week. How you doing there, Jimmy Engstrom? Is it okay if I use Blazor Server for backend instead of MVC or Razor Pages? Yes, absolutely. Is there a video about statement control in C#? I don't know what you're talking about, statement control. Control statements like if then? Yes, take a look earlier in the video series. How much coffee to learn before learning C# and Blazor? I'm about halfway through the cup here. All right. Let's get into this. Let's get into and talk about our project today. We're going to be talking about basics of getting authentication and authorization running inside of a Blazor application. Now, I'm going to be focused on Blazor WebAssembly because when you run with Blazor Server, authentication is identical to what you would do in ASP.NET Core. Authorization and ensuring that folks are authenticated when they access various parts of your Blazor application, those are things that are common across Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly, and we'll definitely show you that, and you'll be able to use those techniques across both application formats. So, is the formatting already fixed? There's more improvements coming there. So, will this live stream be available for future? It is being recorded. You will find it on YouTube. Let's see. Let's get the coffee together. Let's grab the phone. Ooh, nearly knocked over the coffee. Here we go. Calling an async function is a wait needed in the on-click statement. Yes. Heading over. On the other microphone. Good. Ready to go. Gonna need the phone. As we go for our constitutional, our walk over to the other set, let's head over there and get ready to do some coding together, shall we? Here we go. And do I have that? Is that all tied up? Ah, we're good. We're good. And over here now, darn it. My, are you kidding? You're gonna do this to me? Really? It did. Why you do this? My teleprompter went to sleep on me. And that's just annoying. There we go. IntelliSense is still broken and very slow. I use the preview versions, and it's been pretty good for me. All right. Let's talk about this. Nah, we'll even close that. Are you kidding? And we even went out a little bit out of focus. What the heck is this? Are you kidding? Like, I step away and all these things just, we're not going to work right now. Nah, we don't need that right now. Like, I know I was kind of away on the other side of the room here. There we go. Right, and did I get that focused properly? I think I did. Yeah, there we go. It's weird when I step over here and everything's out of focus. Like, are you kidding? Driver error. Well, that's... Really? The teleprompter just crashed with a sign that says driver error. All right, so I guess we're going to look over here instead, and we'll fix that another time. Yeah, I've got my gunner glasses on. And what's the best IDE for Visual Studio for .NET? The one that makes you happy. I work on Visual Studio. If you want to use a different text editor, be my guest. So, oh my gosh, Fred with a general thank you for the videos. That's very kind. Needs to learn new stuff to stay relevant. I feel the same way. Always learning. Always learning. Today we're going to be talking about security with Blazor. This is session 0307. And specifically, authentication and authorization. It's an interesting topic. I'm not going to go deep on how to configure authentication, how to configure the identity service on the server, because, quite frankly, that is a very deep topic. There are all kinds of exceptions and to rules and things, and it's something that can confuse more than it can educate. And I will defer to experts like my friend Christos on the 425 show to talk more about that. It is Pi Day. TMK DK on Twitch points out. I should have done a bit of this while running on my Raspberry Pis. Not going to get into that today. What we're going to show here today, this works. The authorization, the tools that we're going to show work both on Blazor Server and on Blazor WebAssembly. The hookup is a little bit different between the two. It can be just a little bit different. And now this is going to work again. Really? I don't want to... I don't want to be doing this the whole time. Windowed projector. There we go. And this. So, do I see any breakthrough with Blazor? No, it's not going to be dropped at any point. No, not at all. No, if anybody tells you that Blazor is going away is lying. Nobody at Microsoft has any consideration for Blazor disappearing. It's going to be supported for at least the next 4 years as part of .NET 6. There's going to be updates in .NET 7 that are already planned, so which means it'll be in .NET 8 as well. That's going to give you at least 6 more years of Blazor. Come on. Who do you think we are? Google? Yes, happy Pi Day to folks out there. March 14th. Wellington, I can't answer that question in the middle of a session like this. So that's right. Blazor is not Silverlight. Actually, I wouldn't be too upset if Blazor was Silverlight because it had 10 years of support after it was declared dead by folks. So, like, that's not bad at all, right? Like, browser vendors discontinued Silverlight was being developed, not Microsoft. Let's be clear about that. It was the browser vendors that said we're not going to support this anymore. Yeah, something's failing on my teleprompter all of a sudden. All right. 6 years is not that long. You're kidding, right? Come on now. All right. We're going to talk about security with Blazor. I do have actually... Go away. I do have 2 issues out here that we're going to cover as well that were asked ahead of time about Blazor local storage and saving contents to a local PC. I have a demo that I'm going to show you today that actually uses the local storage and is going to answer a little bit of how this works, how you can interact and use that. So I'm not going to delve into building a sample specifically for this. Really? But this question, how do we add things like a W3 counter so that you have a counter, so you have analytics running on every page through your Blazor website? This we can answer. This we can talk about really quickly here. Let me show you. If we go over to CSharpFritz.com, and this is my hats website. This shows my hat collection. There are a few hats. There's a few hats in the collection. This is a Blazor WebAssembly website. And if you want to have the same content, the same analytics package running on every page throughout your Blazor application, I'm going to go down into the client here. There's 2 places I can put this. I can put it right inside the index HTML. This is the index page. This is all of the HTML content that's going to load up and render and host the Blazor WebAssembly application. So I can put a script right there, and it'll be included on every page as it's interacted with in the browser. Okay? That's one thing you can do. There are also out there, I don't know specifically for, what was it, W3 counter? There are also packages that you can get to on NuGet for, I believe it's Blazor and Google Analytics. And yeah, Blazor Analytics. I believe this is the one that I'm using. And you can add this package in. There's a couple directions of how to get it installed, including a little bit of script that you add. And you can now, from C# trigger and interact with those analytics throughout your application. Really cool stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Blazor W3 counter. But no, there isn't. So I would take a look at how they're configuring how to interact with their analytics. Drop an appropriate JavaScript in that index HTML, and as you navigate around, it should trigger and see those various pages that you're working with. All right. Really? Am I going to have to? Which browser am I using? I'm using Firefox. Let's jump over to the big Microsoft Edge. No, don't restore pages. Jump right to that issue. I should be logged in here. No, I'm not logged in here either. You make me sad. Yes, use GitHub Mobile. Yes, get me logged back in so I can mark that. There it goes. It's a good thing I brought the phone over. All right. Answered in stream on, what day is today? March 14th. So, and I will include a link to this issue and an entry in the chapters on the recording, so you can jump right to this answer and you can see more about that. All right. So let's talk about security with Blazor. And I'm blown away by the paranoia questions from folks on YouTube. Do I think Razor pages will fade out in favor of Blazor, so we have Blazor only? No. But you can use the two together, so why not? Did I try gRPC Web and Blazor together? Yes, works great. YouTube being YouTube again? A little bit. Look, I understand folks wanting to make sure that their packages and tools are going to be supported for a long time. They are. They will be. But anybody who tells you that .NET, Visual Studio, some part of the .NET frameworks and tools is not going to be supported after a year or two, quite frankly, they're lying. As a member of the .NET and Visual Studio teams, I can tell you that's never going to happen under our watch. Okay? We want to make sure that everybody has full capabilities, has backward compatibility as they build applications going forward. If you're going to ask me if a technology that you're using today is going to still be supported in the year 2050, I'm not going to be around in 2050. I can't make that decision for then. But is it going to be around and supported for the next 5 to 10 years? Yeah, absolutely. Okay? But if technologies change, if things shift, and people bring in new capabilities, I just lost my... bring in new capabilities to the web, they're not going to be available on older technologies. Cores isn't available. It doesn't work with ASP.NET Web Forms. Technology just wasn't available when that was built. Going forward, yeah, new technologies have that capability because it's now been built in and it's fully supported. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about building and working with how you do authentication and authorization with Blazor. All right. So there is some great documentation out here. Come on, open up. That's available on the doc site. I encourage you, and I purposely didn't put the documentation into the article, the README for today's stream, because it changes. This type of thing changes. There could be a security patch. There could be all kinds of things, and I don't want to be running around. Thank you, LastPass, you loudmouth extension. I don't want to be running around and updating it because there's a security patch and it changes the way something behaves. Okay? I want to make sure that you know and you can reach into and get the authoritative content where it is being maintained by the security analysts and officers and get that authoritative information first. Now, authentication and authorization, when you're working with Blazor, defers to the server side to do the authentication. You can't run Blazor WebAssembly and do authentication all completely in your browser. You need to refer to a server somewhere that's going to actually get that credentialed user and check and make sure that everything is logged in and properly accessible. So, how do we set that up? If I have control of the server and I'm building and working with my own server, I'm going to stand up an ASP.NET Core website, and I'll have that Blazor WebAssembly application that runs and knows how to reach into that server to get its authentication credentials, to get its tokens, put them down in storage inside the WebAssembly application, and be able to work with it. Now, when you're running on Blazor server, everything stays server-side, and you're passing cookies or tokens back and forth to ensure that that browser is who they say they are. Now, that technique for Blazor server is identical to how it works on ASP.NET Core to get you authenticated. I'm not going to go into and cover that. Let me show you how it does get configured and connected using Blazor with WebAssembly. So there is a package, ASP.NET Core Components Authorization, that you bring into the mix, and you're going to set up and work with either the built-in authentication state provider or extend and build your own. And I have a sample that'll show you how to build your own in just a little bit. And it will connect over to the ASP.NET Core server. Now, there's information here about how to do most of this stuff. Authentication state provider service, what does it look like, and what does it give you? We'll see that in just a minute as well. Let me show you what the default template is and how it generates for us. And it's right over here. I'm using Visual Studio Code today, so I can just dive in and get right into this content. So client, server, and shared are the three pieces that we see when we build our application. And this is an ASP.NET 5 type of structure. So inside we have a startup file here. And inside of here we have all the stuff necessary. Let me zoom that one little bit there. We have all the stuff necessary to configure our services, and this is where we're going to do that initial configuration of identity. Okay, so we have a database context defined here, so you know how to interact with the database. We're using, in this case, Entity Framework Core. Sure, I don't care. Go away. We're using Entity Framework Core to save and interact with the database, and we're using SQLite. All right. So it's a little database that's saved on disk. You can easily change that if you want to use MySQL, SQL Server, Postgres, Oracle, Sybase. Is Sybase still a thing? DB2. You can drop in the appropriate connection information right there, so you can connect out and use that other database with an appropriate connection string. Okay. So, lot of options for how you configure that database context. That's where we're going to store the configuration information for our users, their passwords, their roles, their claims in this local hosted configuration. That's how it's stored. Now, there are other configurations if you want to connect out and use OIDC, OpenID Connect. You want to go use Azure Active Directory. You've got maybe a local Active Directory installed. There are other configurations you can do for that. I'm going to go through and just show how the authentication is configured for local. Those other configurations slightly different. Documentation is available online to get you through there, but this will get you configured with the default identity capabilities right here. Okay. This adds Identity Server because this is the .NET 5 version. So Identity Server gets you the ability to send JWT tokens, JavaScript Web Tokens, JWTs, back and forth between a server and a client that contains information about authentication and various claims, roles, information about who that user is sent back and forth as part of that payload. And Identity Server does that for you. And we'll also add authentication with send and passing those JWTs back and forth. There is, last thing you need here, use Identity Server is set up right there, so it knows how to properly receive and service those tokens. So that's on the server side. There is a login partial that is generated for you by default that has, here's how to do the login. Now, this is a CSHTML. This is a Razor view that's built, and it has information about how to configure it. And it's Razor. We've seen Razor. We know how to build this. But this is going to be rendered and run on the server, and it helps hand off to the appropriate authentication mechanisms how to do login. Now, you can generate more of this content. You can go and generate custom pages that you can customize with labels and colors and extra fields if you need them, all using a scaffolding tool that's available at the command line that'll build all the other login and user management pages for you. Can I show the .NET 6 version instead of .NET 5? I can go generate that real quick. Let's go into source. So there's the hosted template. So if I want to create the .NET 6 version, so I would say .NET new Blazor WASM, and I'm going to pass in the help command here because I want you to see that there are all kinds of command line switches that you can use. These switches are all checkboxes and things in the Visual Studio templates. When you say File, New Project, you'll get these features as various checkboxes and drop-downs and options that you can choose how you want to configure, including generate the configuration for Azure Active Directory, right? Azure B2C, the authority if you want to do OpenID Connect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure this for authorization for individual. So let's say .NET new Blazor WASM. I'm going to output into, let's call this .NET 6 identity, and I'm going to pass in a dash AU individual. And it will generate from the templates, do the restore. So the .NET 6 version down here, say it has program CS. I wanted the hosted one. Rats. 1 second. Hang on. Remove item. Yes. Do that again. I forgot to pass hosted. Cool. There we go. Client server shared. So on the server side, in program, it looks a little bit different. It's all kind of smashed into one file, but you have the same thing. Add DB context SQLite. This time we don't have. They did add identity server here. I didn't think it was going to do that. There is a licensing thing there. There are other ways to generate and use JOT tokens here, but identity server is there. Check your licensing appropriately for this before you deploy to production. And it does the same use identity server down here. That is a .NET 6 version. Yep. So, and when we look at the area up here, login area, it has the same content for the login page. Okay. That's not where I want to spend my time. You're going to go through and you're going to end up figuring out how to configure that appropriately for your application. When we want to configure our Blazor application, this is where I want you to know what's going on, okay? We have all the things to configure Blazor up top for the user interface, but then it adds an HTTP client here called Net6 Identity Server API. This is so that we can have that authenticated connection back and forth to the server. So client base address, new URI, so it's to that address. But it adds an HTTP message handler. Add a little bit more handler information as we're going back and forth to the server, and we're going to use this base address authorization message handler. It's going to bring our JOT tokens back and forth with us, if they're present, to the server so that you can have that appropriate authentication and get feedback that shows that you are properly authorized to interact with things. Add scoped, a client factory here. Let's put a couple carriage returns in there so you can see it. So it makes sure that that server API is available, that client is available for folks to use when they're building and working with this. Add API authorization so that it knows to pass those tokens back and forth when it interacts with the server. Now, if I go up here and we start looking at, where do I want to start? Let's start looking at, no. I'm going to look at the app first. The app has changed. This is where we jump off and we specify the router. We specify how to get between different pages inside of our application. So, it's different. It's got a bunch of orange underlines here because, yeah, I know. It hasn't properly done the restore here. Yeah, and it doesn't know what some of these things are. Up top, we had cascading variables before. This is a special type of cascading variable, cascade authentication state. And what this does is it takes your tokens, your login information, and makes it available to the entire application, regardless of where you are. We then have our router, and if it finds a page that matches where you're trying to navigate to, it's going to do this authorize route view here. What does that mean? Based on those credentials that it may have found or it didn't find, it's going to check to see, well, if authorization is required to get to that page, enforce it. And if you're not authorized, here's a little bit of content to generate by default on that page that lives within our main layout, right? We have a default layout that's specified here. So it'll check, well, if you are not logged in, well, send them to the login. You're not logged in, you need to be authenticated to get to this page, reroute to the login page. But if you are logged in, right, if that's true, authenticated is true, you are logged in, then let's just output a little message here, sorry, you're not authorized to access this. And we're going to focus on navigate to the first H1 when you get to that page, and a little bit of accessibility there. And of course, if it doesn't find a page, right, if you, 404 type of thing, right, file not found, you went somewhere that I don't have a page, there's nothing at this address. That's the same as it was before. But the new thing here is this authorize route view. So it's going to route to login. Where's login? How does it, what does that look like? So there is over here authentication/action. Now this is where it gets, it's a little bit weird. There's a little bit of kind of magic that happens here that I'm personally not entirely comfortable with, but it works. So this /authentication/action is going to reroute to the hosted page to do login. Okay. Now, it's doing that. It's doing this handoff from Blazor over to that other page so that we can be sure you're authenticated and you're able to interact. Now, there's a login display here. This is a component that lives at the top of the page that contains information to give you that login button. See, there's login, and it goes to authentication/login. We saw the authentication page. It's going to reroute me to the hosted site and that login action. So this piece, authorize view, is the new part that I want to make sure you're comfortable with. This is a way for us to inspect the current logged in user and output different parts, different HTML, different markup, or behave differently using just some tags. I don't have to put a big if statement here that says if user is if user has role admin, do this. No. If they're authorized, here's what they do. This is what I want you to output. If they're not authorized, do this. And I can also take that authorized there, and I can actually drop in. That's not what it's supposed to do. I can drop in a roles argument into that, and roles parameter, and I can specify if they're authorized as part of these roles, do this thing. And that's included in the documentation. Come on. Down here. Come on. Authorized. Show it to me. There it is. Authorized view roles. Right? I can do that. Oh, it's because I put it on the wrong one. Right? So check to see if they're a member of one of these roles. Yeah, it's not giving me the autocomplete for it. Right, so I could say if you're in the admin role, then show, and you're authorized, do this top bit. Otherwise, do that bit instead. Okay, so I've got the ability to do security checks and output automatically content appropriately based on whether somebody belongs to that role. There's also, I believe you can also pass policy. So if you want to do a policy check based on various claims, you can do that as well. There's a bunch of questions coming in here over on chat. Let me scroll back and take a look at them. You thought .NET 5 is not supported in a few months anyways. Yes, .NET 5 support ends in May. However, these samples are the same. It's the exact same code, just a different version number. Because, right, .NET 5, when you look at the .NET version numbers, the odd numbers are where something new is introduced, something new and experimental. The even version numbers are where that thing is solidified, stabilized, and delivered for long-term support. So it's the same, but yeah, you'll see .NET 6 is identical to it. Yeah, the help is kind of important to show where that is. Deleep on YouTube is planning to move from Java to C#, so I want to know which is the most common C# web framework used in companies. ASP.NET Core. ASP.NET Core, MVC. And Blazor is picking up speed. VB Blaster asks, why do I not see the Azure AD options if I use the Create New Blazor WebAssembly app in Visual Studio? You do see them. They're there. So let me walk through and show you where that is in the screens. Is it necessary to abstract ASP.NET Core identity for an enterprise solution, or will it do it as it is out of the box? It'll do as is out of the box. You'll be fine with that. There's instructions how to wire it up to your enterprise providers that'll take care of that for you. So I will go and choose not Blazor Server. I will choose Blazor WebAssembly. And that's fine. Next. Long-term support, ASP.NET Core hosted, authentication type. And I can choose accounts or identity platform. So the question was, why do I not see the Azure AD options? Choose the identity platform. And it'll, I believe it's supposed to prompt you for some of that. Or not. There you go. So .NET MS Identity, .NET Tool, which we use to configure to use the identity platform. Yeah, go get it. So. And get me configured, please. Where is it? No. Why didn't you do this? And why'd that pop out? I didn't want it. Huh. No, I'm not. I don't want to publish. And I don't see it here. So they changed this on me. I haven't seen this yet. Let's just do a quick check here. No. I don't know. I didn't want to clone. Do that again. It's supposed to jump you right in. Sure. That's fine. And It's already installed. Yeah. And now I'm kind of... no, not storage. Let me look into that and get back to you, because it's clearly there in the templates. I don't know what they changed here in Visual Studio, but it's sure not right there at the beginning in the configuration anymore. Yeah. They removed it, and you're right, it sure doesn't look accessible. That makes me sad. Let me take a look into that now, and I will drop some notes in the project here, because something's definitely missing for that. How would I handle anonymous and authenticated requests on the same controller from WebAssembly, based on config you showed creating a client? So, if I have an authenticated server here, right, and there's things that I want to protect, I already have the ability to say you need to be authorized by using an authorized tag on that controller. So, hey, you must be authorized to be able to interact with some of these things. I can change a specific method. Oh, are you kidding? I'm not going to get... Come on now. Really? No. None of the IntelliSense is working here in Visual Studio Code. Well, that's frustrating. That was when we did 8. Back over here, this one, we were in Net 6 Identity. Come on. So on the server, I had a controller that has configuration here. Really? So, right, I have authorized to enable that. I can add allow anonymous on those methods that I want to allow folks to come through and read without requiring authentication. So you can mix and match appropriately different verbs to set your controls appropriately. Thank you for that question. How can I manage AppRaiser when the login page is the first page? So if you want the login page to be your first page, what you're describing is you don't want index to be your default. You want you want the first page to be index, but you want to require folks to be authenticated to be able to interact with that. Let's talk about that. Let's take a look at this. So I'm going to go into Net 6 Identity. I'm going to run this here. I need to go into server is what I'm thinking. Thank you. And I'll run the application right there. So this is going to compile the server, bring in the Blazor WebAssembly, and host it, and we'll have it all hanging out there. Can I use API backend as Azure Functions? Yes, you can. And there is a way to set up OIDC Connect with Azure Functions so they authenticate out to the same OpenID Connect server. There is instructions for how to do that. Can we use identity to manage authorization for a REST API? That's what I'm doing here right now. Identifier expected. Oh, because where did I get rid of that? Do that again. Or I didn't save it earlier is what happened. There it goes. Fantastic. See, I do not have a valid license key for Identity Server. This is allowed for development and testing scenarios. If you're running in production, you're required to get a licensed version. And they have a link to contact them for information. So let me click into and let's run this, this sample. There we go. All right. And here's my Blazor application. And my login is right here. I can click through to log in. And I have my counter. If I go to fetch data, I'm not authenticated. I'm not logged in. It's routed me over to a login site. Hey, you need to log in here. So I'm going to register as a new user. At this point, I'm running, take a look up at the top, /identity/account/register. That's not in the Blazor application. I'm on the server. I'm on that server project and working inside of Identity over there. So let me log in here. I will use this account with this password. And sure, I don't have the email set up, so I click through to confirm, and now I can click login up here. Login, and it's routed me back. All of those tokens were passed back and forth to my application, and I'm logged in. Now when I go over to fetch data, I'm allowed to view that. Now there's two things going on with the fetch data, right? I showed you on the server, we must be authorized to interact with this. We can also put inside the client, inside the Blazor app, we can add our authorized attribute there. This is the standard ASP.NET way to indicate this entire page must be authenticated. You must be logged in to get here by adding an authorized attribute. Okay? So just like we had an authorized attribute here, it's over there. Why is it in both places, Fritz? Why do it feels like overkill. Really? You want to put it on the client so that the client stops the initial navigation to access that feature. You also put it on the server because we don't trust the client. Whenever you're building web applications, you do not trust things coming from the client because all kinds of things could be done to that client to change the way that it behaves because you're shipping code down and it's out of your control. So the interaction that comes back, that's where we want to just double check to make sure somebody's logged in before they can interact with it. Why do I select hosted instead of native Blazor WASM? Because when you turn on, see, and that's the next one I want to show you. When you turn that on, you can have a standalone Blazor WebAssembly app and route the requests to an OpenID server, an OpenID Connect service, and you're not hosting anything locally. Okay, that OpenID Connect is somewhere else, and you're just passing information back and forth to that server. How that's configured, there's directions for how to do that. There's a default template that shows you how to do that. For me, for here right now, how that authentication is configured, not something we're going to cover. I want to focus on getting the Blazor features for authorization and controlling what displays and interacting with some of that content inside the application. You're curious to see identity on a client-side WebAssembly app with no secrets available. How are you going to do authentication without any secrets? Like, that's where OpenID Connect comes in, right? Is here's my client ID. I'm going to go and connect out to this server. That's about it. There are no secrets. So, I'll show you what that template looks like, but I don't have a OpenID Connect server to just go connect to. So let's do that one. Up one more here. So .NET New, Blazor WASM. And I'll call this let's call this standalone. And this is individual. Yeah. All right. So I'll go back over to Visual Studio here. And let's open another project. Standalone, there it is. Don't save that, that's fine. So here's a standalone Blazor WebAssembly app. And there it is. Add OIDC authentication right there. And there's instructions for how to do this. Secure ASP.NET Core Blazor WebAssembly, and you want the authentication process with OIDC. And there's instructions here for how to get in and how to do that authentication back and forth. Okay? At the point that you get past and need authorization, you're now interacting and doing the exact same thing, right? Claims and all that. This is all, those items are specific, but at the point that you jump through and have authorization, it's the exact same thing as what we're talking about for identity with a hosted solution. You just need to go and configure OIDC as it specifies here. Okay. So capabilities are there. You can also do standalone with Azure Active Directory, and it ends up being an application ID, a directory ID, and having to authenticate and get information back and forth to that Active Directory. Once you get past that, it's all the same, right? You're binding Azure AD. There's the configuration for it. Yes, scopes that you're requesting for how to interact with it. All of that stuff. Christos can talk to you more about how to optimize this, how to do more with it. But you'll get down into the app component, and you once again have cascading authentication state. You have authorized route view. All of those things, right, reroute to authentication login, are the same. So just the initial configuration, how do I get to my authentication server to make sure that I'm logged in? That's how you do this here. And you'll receive claims appropriately from that other service that you can manage and interact with and enforce to allow folks to interact with the application. Do I have any recommendations on Blazor design firms? No, I don't. You should be able to work with somebody who's just a normal web design person to get user interface stuff. But Blazor specific, I don't think there's folks that are a React design firm. So you've had many issues with identity. Christos is the person to talk to about that. Typical Microsoft. Wow. Wow. You have .NET Blazor server-side Blazor. How do you change it to WebAssembly? Copy all of your .razor files out and put them into a new application that is that starts as a WebAssembly template, and that should get you about 90% there. Yeah, just when I get used to something, they remove it. I understand they're trying to consolidate and make things easier to access. I agree. Completely disabling and removing it, I would disagree with that user interface decision. Yes, you can integrate MVC Razor with Blazor WebAssembly. Yes. What mod am I using on PowerShell? So this is Oh My Posh that I'm using over there to get my folder, my Git branch, my Git status. I did have the time on it at one point, but it's easy to remove it. Make it. How can I add additional fields to the login form, like name and phone number? Well, you want to add additional fields to the registration. You're not requiring that at login. That's an identity configuration thing. you're going to end up generating more content. Come on. I stopped the application. That's why it's choking here on me. Yes, I know you're unable to connect. Give me a second and you'll be happy again. There we go. Yes. This one. There we go. So if you want to add additional information at registration time, you need to scaffold those pages. These Razor files are being extracted from the default identity pages. If we take a look at... close that up. Oh, are you kidding? It's not. It's not right here on the top. Thanks so much. No. Site, docs, Microsoft.com, customize registration page. I believe. No. No. Ugh. No. I think that'll give us similar instructions. I appreciate what they're trying to do here. But here we go. Add custom user data. There we go. And identity scaffolder. Now there is a feature inside of Visual Studio. Yeah, I'm in the wrong project. Let me jump over to the other project. So on the server side project, I can add, where is it, scaffolded? I'm trying to scan too quickly here. New scaffolded item. And you can choose identity. And it will give you a list of, it's already there. It's already there. It'll give you a list of various pages that you can scaffold. Yeah. Stop the application. Let this do its install. Because it's running, it was going to run into an issue there. Come on. Yeah, you don't need to build the project. I know it builds. It was building. You can choose the various files that you want to add. It is also available on the command line if you're not in full Visual Studio, and you can add those pages appropriately. And there's information here, a template, so you can expand that user. You want to add some other information. Now, the personal data attribute there, this is important for privacy reasons, right? It's deleted when the delete information, the delete user is called. It's included in the downloaded data when somebody says, hey, I want you to give me the personal data you've been tracking about me. By tagging it as personal data, you'll receive it in your user class. There we go. There's all the things here. So if I want to change the registration page, there's the register confirmation. Where'd it go? I'm looking for, yeah, account register, right? Data context class is that. You're not going to give me a user class. Yeah, just add that one. We got to go through this again. What's interesting is it still adds a reference to SQL Server for this, even though you might not be using SQL Server. It's like, really? Really? Come on. Taking its good old time here. All right. And if we go into areas, identity, pages, there's register. So now I can add, there's email, password, confirm password that was on that initial registration page. I can add those additional fields that you want to require at registration time here, and you can then route and save those appropriately. And there is also the code behind so that you can handle that extra data appropriately. Where is it? On get, on post, here it is. So set username, set email, and whatever other fields you're receiving, you want to inject those appropriately on the user store. Okay. So that's a little bit of information if you want to customize registration. There's lots more you can do with that as well. So thank you, Finn, for the question on YouTube. How do you customize the visual aspect? Yeah, so you're going to scaffold these pages if you really want to go through and change the way they look. And you can then go through and generate them appropriately, right? Paint them however you'd like, right? So in Visual Studio, it's add, scaffolded item, identity. Yeah, see, it's going to go through this thing again. And check the various pages that you want, or you can use the CLI and specify what pages you want here. Okay. Yeah, there they are, right? Give me all the files. Yep. And it will write down, and you'll see all the files appear in here that could be used. The default ones are available. What did I break? I didn't think I changed anything. I didn't change anything in there. Nope, it's because it's running. Wait. Conflicting assets with the same name. Really? Try that again. When in doubt, clean. And we'll go through that. The only thing immortal is VB. Is it possible to use that same auth token for more applications without having to log in multiple times? That's where things like OIDC and Azure Active Directory are going to work for you, because you'll have that central server that's outside your application you're routing information to. Really? What else do we got here? Are you kidding? I didn't touch that stuff. And it's not running over here. Yeah, I'm confused what that's airing out on, and I don't want to spend time fighting with it right now. In authentication, can you add in two-factor? Yes, you can. There is instructions when you run the application, and you go into the registration. There are instructions. You dog. Conflicting assets with the same target path fav icon. I'm gonna go to the other version of this, just because I I don't want to spend time fighting it. It's the exact same thing. There are instructions for how to configure it. There's even instructions for how to get it to generate QR codes so that somebody can scan a QR code and get it loaded into their two-factor authentication app on their phone. So there, log in. Yes. So first time logging in, and if I click back over here, there's a two-factor authentication, add authenticator app, and it generates a key for you that you can use for that two-factor authenticator app right there. Or there's instructions here for how to get a JavaScript library, download, install it, and it will generate the QR code that folks can scan with their phone and get into two-factor authentication immediately. Okay? So two-factor authentication is available to be configured. There's also instructions out here if you want to remove two-factor authentication from your service, from your application. But two-factor authentication you can absolutely use. And that, right? Look at the URL. I'm not in the Blazor application. I'm in Identity Account Manage. That's on the server. All right? Blazor only receives and consumes the tokens from that for us to interact with. Yes, the UI and the API with regards to Blazor should be considered two different programs. They are. The question is sharing it into other applications so that you continue your authentication experience. There's the whole how you share those tokens back and forth is a different discussion. So, right, you can't have secrets on a full WebAssembly, but there are ways to get around it. There are no secrets to be published and shared. So, no, you end up doing OpenID Connect where you pass a client ID and you're logged in. Your login page is your first landing page of the application, not login button click. How can you manage the login page? So, if I'm on my server over here, I can make the home page authenticated, right? And I can effectively make the entire application authenticated by going into, I thought I was in, oh, that's the server. Pages, index, right? Authorize, type correctly, Fritz. It's not that hard. I didn't .NET watch, so I need to restart. Yep, hot reload is running. Now that's interesting because I put authorize on the front page. I'm in the wrong project because I jumped over because that one was giving me issues. This one. No. How we doing? Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're almost out of time. Ooh. Hang on. So you are in here. Attribute. File changed. It'll build and make that available. If you put a secrets in a non-hosted WebAssembly, that is basically insecure. That's right. But that's where OpenID Connect comes in. You specify, here's my client. go log in, this is all running client side. Trevor, that's completely outside scope of what we're talking about, as I'm almost out of time. Sorry. Where am I reading these from? Over there. They're on YouTube. Yeah, that's not reloading. Any examples that can show this kind of integration? MVC View plus Blazor WebAssembly. Not taking into account authentication and authorization. IKK Dev on YouTube. Take a look at the docs. There's instructions for how to call a Blazor component from there. Why isn't this rebuilding? Like, literally, I changed one thing. Why aren't you rebuilding? Yeah. And now refresh. And it bumps me right to the login page. That's the way I would do it. You shouldn't be hitting your login page as the first page into your application. This way, it still all behaves the same. You just put authorize and say you need to be authorized to get into the entire application. And now I'm in and working. My login page is generated and saved on disk inside the application, the server application. So, no, they didn't hard code SQL Server in the text. The SQL Server bits of Entity Framework Core are a default dependency. When you're scaffolding, it's no longer Blazor WebAssembly components, but old Razor pages. That's right. How to add Blazor login registration page. There are ways to do it, and that's the other sample I want to show here is our friend Chris Sainty put together samples showing how to do that, but our recommended way to do this is with an OIDC controller. So you've already an OIDC service, so you go and reference that. What Chris put together is inside this folder in the samples that I have available for you. I copied it over from Chris's website. Attributes and links over to his blog are all included in here. But what he has done is he has hand-built some of the things inside the Blazor templates, built custom states of these things so that it'll get the token from local storage in the browser, your JOT token, and generate your authentication state from that. There's also inside of here, and this is .NET 5, how this was built. There is also a login page. Stop it. Go away. And when it goes through this, it reaches into an authorization service calls login. And if we show the authentication service, there's register, post as JSON async to an API endpoint, read from there, and login reaches out to that same endpoint and does the login. It's doing all of this internal to the application, the Blazor application. The server application still needs that API endpoint to create and manage these things with authentication, with those capabilities from, I believe, Identity Server is set up in this to interact and behave appropriately. Okay? So it's going through Identity, it is going into User Manager, and allowing you to interact appropriately using that. So when I run this, I need to be, source. No, I want the client, the server. Run this one, and it starts up, and all of the pages to manage users are inside the Blazor application, and it passes stuff back out. Am I not reading chat there on Twitch? No, I'm not reading chat there on Twitch. Sorry. Shouldn't it be on the template, the authorized attribute, instead of index? No. The question was, I want to go to the login page by default, and I've configured that appropriately, as requested. And I'm not getting the CSS for this. There it is. So he's moved over the login, so it's over here. There's a secured area part of this website, and what he's doing inside of here is he's using that authorized view that I showed you earlier. That's the drive. That's what I want you to know about and be aware of as you're working on this, is that secured, it's requiring authorized in order to be able to interact with that. Okay? There's also a user page over here where, and I'm not going to be able to show all of this, he's getting claims data about the current logged in user using the authentication state provider and just doing a for loop across it to output it on the screen. Here we go, get the claims, and just does a for loop and says, here's all the claims data. But that authorized attribute is preventing any type of interaction with this. No, not that one. I don't think I have this configured on this machine. Quick login. And this is all happening inside Blazor. I did have it configured here. Darn it. Yep. And there I'm logged in. I go over to user and I can see there's my data and the secured page I'm allowed in and access to. So you can do all of it in Blazor. You have to build and scaffold all these pieces for you in order to do that interaction. Can I show SQLite and Explorer window? No, you can do that yourself. The files are sitting there on disk in the sample folder. C# versus Rust. I don't do those types of arguments here, Dragco. Go take that somewhere else. You're literally talking to somebody named CSharpFritz and asking that question. Go take that question somewhere else. We don't have those kinds of discussions here. Is there a way to centralize the authorized attribute instead of repeating it on every page? Yes, you can force the entire page to be required, to have authentication required. There's documentation about it in here. I forget exactly where it is, but it is on the docs website to require the entire site to be authenticated. I'm going to wrap up and head over. I'm a couple minutes over. Let me head over to the main desk over here. There we are. Hello, friends. Whew. Okay, so much going on, and that's why I didn't want to go too far off the rails looking at all their authentication things, because there are so many ways to configure and push this. And really what I wanted to drive, what I wanted you to be aware of and know, is how to get connected to a server, because that's where you're going to get data from a server for your Blazor application for authentication and authorization. But how to enforce that authorization all goes through your authentication state provider, the authorized attribute, and you can then check for roles and policies and get that information back and forth and working inside Blazor. All the different ways that you want to set up to connect out to a server, you're either doing it with OIDC Connect, OpenID Connect, or you're running on the same server as what it is you're connecting to, or you're using a service like Azure Active Directory or an on-premises Active Directory as your authentication source. And once that's handed back to your application, those same authorized attributes and the authorized view all take effect and do the same thing. All right. It is so easy to overthink, yes. So that's a lot of coffee. Thank you so much, friends. I really appreciate you joining us here today. It was fun. We got through a lot. There were a handful of samples out there, and all the data, all the source code, what we were looking at is available on the GitHub. Check it out! ! GitHub in chat. We'll get you links to the GitHub repository. If you're watching the recording of this on YouTube, check out the description just below. There's a link out to the GitHub repository with details, the samples that we looked at here today. They're all available there online, and I've even got some links out to documentation about this topic that'll get you through and get you working with identity and with Blazor. All right. Friends, thank you so much for tuning in. It was a fantastic stream today. I'm going to be back next week. We're going to get involved with globalization and localization next week. I was thinking about moving on to ASP.NET Core next week, but I think we had enough requests there that it makes sense to get into globalization and localization next week. Those of you that are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you joining us. Check out some more of the great videos that are available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/.net. There's tons of playlists there. There's content from .NET Conf, from Build, from Ignite, from years gone by, all kinds of content and training materials to help you on your development journey. And for those of you that are on Twitch, get ready for a raid. Let's go. Let's find out who else is streaming on the big Twitch TV network. Let's see who we can get you connected with that's also talking about tech and having a good time here this morning. As I take a look around the horn here at what else is happening out there on this Pi Day, I think, some folks were talking about getting a job. Let's head over to the Microsoft Developer Channel as they're talking about up-leveling your skills, talking about computer science degrees versus coding boot camps. So we're going to get you over there to Microsoft Developer. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure talking with you. As always, I'll be back on Tuesday and Thursday over on my Twitch channel for more live streaming, more AMA, more Blazor hijinks, twitch.tv/CSharpFritz. But for now, get ready to go say hello to the folks on the Microsoft Developer Channel. Take care. Where'd that button go?